Welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast with Don and Suzanne Manning.
A podcast where we share with you great insights about everything family from over 30 years of parenting 7 kids and over a decade of equipping parents through our Crazy Cool Family ministry.
So let us inspire and equip you to build your best family.
Have you seen anything good on social media lately? Probably not, but hey, we have something good. What about following us, Crazy Cool Family? Our platforms are centered on inspiring and challenging parents to drip Jesus-focused culture into their families daily. So join the movement of families just like yours who are following Crazy Cool Family on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and start receiving daily drops of encouragement into your feed. If you already follow us, share the next post you see or tell a friend about any of these platforms.
Hey everybody, Macy here, and my mom and my little sister McKenzie are on the podcast today. We're so excited that you're joining us. You're listening to this episode. We think it could change your life.
Oh, for sure. Always.
Basically,
something.
Yeah. And we brought
we'll say something in there.
God can do anything. We were having a conversation. This was probably months ago. Kenzie and I were just talking about, we're new moms. We each have one little baby girl. Mine's a little bit over 1. Kenzie's is about to turn 1. And we were basically talking about this concept of being a mom, living in the identity of mother and motherhood. This idea of, now that I'm a mom, I will always be a mom for the rest of my life. Am I doing it great? Am I, getting my butt kicked? And the word that kind of rose up and kind of bubbled up is we were like, how do you know if you're thriving in motherhood or if you're falling into victimhood? And so we kind of unpacked it and shared our thoughts. And Kenzie is a certified counselor. And so she brought so much wisdom and so much ideas.
I'm not a certified counselor. I'm a recently graduated master's counselor. I'm not a certified counselor.
You're certified.
I was about to say,
you're certified.
When you listen to this in 3-5 years, she'll probably be certified. Who knows? But she has a lot. She's just fresh out of grad school, just fresh out of getting so much wisdom. And she just shared a lot of things that challenged me in my thinking about victimhood versus motherhood, but also brought up some questions of like, well, what do you do if you're a mom and you're home all day and you are struggling with your thoughts? You're struggling with victimhood. You're struggling to know, like, am I thriving or am I surviving? And am I healthy? And where does God fit into all of that? And so we just kind of brought the conversation to our mom, and here's the podcast.
Who lived in victimhood. They're like, what? I can resonate with you, Mom. Mom, you remember when you lived like, yeah, tell us what you did. How did you balance? I mean, and it really is. I mean, speaking from experience, there really is a balance. And I do think that we do flow in and out of feeling like a victim as a mom, depending on the, what's happening and the demands that we have. I remember seasons where everybody was sick. And you talk about feeling like a victim. Yeah. I mean, between cleaning up throw up and wiping up snot and being up all night with whichever kid was awake.
Yeah, that's why I told Jared the other day, my husband, my daughter had been sick for like a whole week. And I was like, I just feel like a tissue. I was like, that feeling when that tissue's been used like 3 or 4 times and it should have been in the trash, but it ended up on the table. And so you reuse it again.
Because it's dried at this point.
I'm like, that's what I feel like. A dried up, used too many times tissue,
Yeah, there you go. That is the banner of victim motherhood right there.
in a little picture for you. If you feel like a tissue, this podcast is for you. But we just basically took this idea and we want to break it down and share some hopefully encouraging and challenging and spirit-filled ideas of how to live in motherhood the way God designed it and not fall prey to victimhood. And so we're going to define what motherhood is and then talk about it, and then victimhood and define it, and then go into some practicals. Kenz, is there anything you want to share before we jump into that?
I think that this conversation could be sensitive, mainly because a victim is often operating or being a victim because something happened. It's not just like, oh, and so with that, I would just challenge, if anything feels sensitive or anything feels challenging, even like take it to the Lord, take it to community, even email Macy, do something with that, and don't let the enemy use more information or like challenge to put you deeper into the victim hole. But we want this to like be an opportunity to be pulled out and to like see the world different, like, and getting to approach the day differently, because it can be really lonely and isolating and hard in the space of feeling like a victim, where, and if, again, talk to a counselor if you do have greater, deeper victim experiences, because that's another piece, is like, this could be rooted with something way deeper than just your kids are hard and your circumstances are hard. So I would say that's like my only first initial thought.
Yeah. And along with that, Kenzie, I'm so glad you said that, because I want us to address that a little bit as well. That the world comes as the word victim is a negative thing. Oh, you're being a victim, or don't be a victim, or, I mean, it just has a negative feeling or connotation about it. And I'd like us today, as we approach this, I'd like to just challenge you to not look at it as something negative, but maybe as a red flag, that something's going on in your soul, your spirit, your mind, your heart, your relationships are all like, wait a minute, something's going on, pay attention. I want to see what's going on. And so and I need to be encouraged. I need to be lifted up, and that's what we want to do today. And so if you're assessing your role as a mother, and you're thinking like, oh, wow, I wonder if I feel like a victim, or that resonates with me, then great. I just say, great, then this is for you. Then we're going to talk to you and hopefully encourage you.
Yeah. There's also a book that I'll link in the show notes. It's called From Spiritual Slavery to Spiritual Sonship. I read it probably like 5 or 6 years ago. Completely defines and addresses and puts biblical backing to what victimhood is. And it even compares like victim versus victor and who we are in Christ. Good. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about as we start defining motherhood and victimhood, is like, ultimately, we need to understand that our identity is in Christ. It's not attached to our mental health, or attached to our children, or attached to any of these things. It's like, we are who God says we are, and we build from there. And so if you're wanting to dig into this concept of victimhood, there's incredible resources that the counseling world provides. But there's also biblical resources that could partner with it that would help you define victimhood in a deeper way, if it is like coming up in your heart, like my mom said.
Yeah.
So
let's start with motherhood. And so to break down motherhood, just the hood part means it's just a condition or a state, like a neighborhood. It's where your neighbors live. It's their condition.
The hood.
Yeah, it's the hood, man. That's where we are. We're in the hood of being a mother,
and sometimes mothers feel that way. You're like, we are in this very special club, and no one else understands what we're going through. This hood of mothers.
I love all the things on the back of minivans, mom life, where I'm in my mom era, and all the things that it's like, that is true. It is a defining season of your life that you're in, once you get the title and once you have the role, you have it forever.
Yeah.
But there is a very intense season when you have many small dependent beings on you.
When you may not even have multiple, it may just be one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how this conversation started with me and Kenzie's. We were like, hey, are you doing okay? Yeah, are you doing okay? Are our friends doing okay? Like, how do we thrive in this season? Because we're 1 year in, or 6 months in, or whatever. It can be a very simple season in the eyes of the world, but it can be very complicated for you as a mom because it's new.
Yeah. So motherhood, back to that. So it's a condition or state, and then that's the hood, and then the mother part is the nature of being. It's a female parent, nice and simple. And so what are some things like what are some things you guys would define as being a mom? What do you guys think of as being a mom when you think of relating with your daughters?
I think you said this to me recently, that like the dad brings the fun and the energy, and the mom brings like the comfort. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's been a really big piece of motherhood for me. And my husband's even like a little bit like grumbly about it sometimes. He's like, oh, she always wants you, or oh, you're the only one that can comfort her like the way that she wants it, or whatever. But there's a connection between a mom and a daughter, or a mom and a son, a mom and a baby, maybe is the best way to say it, that like I provide comfort for her like nobody else can.
Right.
And I think that is very humbling, and it's a huge honor, but it's also very exhausting to like be her go-to for everything in this season. That's what I think that's my biggest thing right now in motherhood, is I feel like I am her go-to, or I'm her, you said that yesterday when we were talking about this, like her main person. I'm her main one. And I think that has consumed me a lot when it comes to motherhood, in good and hard ways.
Yeah. I think motherhood in my head is like, I get to be the onboard to independence, but it starts with complete dependence. And I felt that whenever I was pregnant with Alice, I was like, oh no, I've done a really intentional job to not create codependent relationships in my life. But I'm about to have this human who is literally dependent on me for every one of her basic needs. Like, how do I? And so I think that it's the wrestle at that of like, how do I steward this codependent relationship where she gets her nutrients from me, she gets her regulation from me, she gets like everything. And I'm like the thing she's most familiar with as she comes into this world.
Sure.
So I get to be a safe space for her as she transitions to becoming independent. But then how do I also release as she does develop her independence and not keep clinging and holding on to being that source? Because I think there's identity in that of like, wow, she does come to me and she loves like, I love that space whenever I'm getting to feed her. Like, like those pieces, how do I release those in their time? So it feels like motherhood is a balance of that, of leaning into the dependence, but then also leaning into stewarding independence. And it's that constant battle of releasing and sacrifice in both spaces.
Yeah, I would say, motherhood, I feel like it's just this deep, unexplainable, profound love that goes beyond words and explanations. Like you can't even capture it, how you feel and think and interact with your child and or children. It's all consuming. It's complete, like you just both said, it's all engulfing. You can't get away from it. I mean, the girls have even said, I so desperately want to break, but while I'm gone, I miss them terribly, and so.
Yeah. Read off a couple of these because I think they really define it too. Like you asked the question, I was like, those 6 points that you have written down too. These are things that define motherhood.
Well, so it's, it's a privilege, it's a gift, it's most definitely a call, and it has to be a call, and we have to see it as a call. It is not something that just happens to us. Even if you have a baby from an unplanned pregnancy, it still is a call, because attached to it is so much sacrifice. And so the only difference would be to see it as a call versus seeing it as something that happened to you. That goes into victimhood, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But it is something that we get to do. It's a dream fulfilled. It's a full-time role. I say all the time, you're a mom 24/7 for 18 years and all the years after that. Because just because they leave the house doesn't mean that you're not a mom to them.
Well, and just really quick, speaking into moms who maybe got pregnant outside of a marriage or a committed relationship, or moms who accidentally got pregnant.
Or had the baby before they had their 3 years of marriage bliss.
Yes, like
or even adopted.
Yes, you adopted, and maybe you don't feel that strong connection with your adopted baby because they weren't biological. Like there's so many, we're talking to a huge spectrum when we say motherhood. And so we're just addressing like God made mothers and fathers. That's one of the main things we say at Crazy Cool Family. Like family is God's idea. He set it up. He has intention. And so when it comes to who you are as a mom and your specific family, like you need to hear from God why he made your family, why he gave you the kids he gave you, and why it's like exactly where you're supposed to be. Because when you stop collecting that from God, and it can't be a one-time thing, it has to be consistently being dripped into you. Otherwise you will fall into what we're about to talk about is victimhood, which is like, I didn't want this, I didn't choose this, I'm not ready for this. I like all those types of like, oh, woe is me type thoughts, when that's not who God made you to be as a mother. And so we have to buy in, if you will, to the profound love, to buy into the gift, the honor, the purpose that comes with motherhood. And we're going to talk about this in a minute, but just like preparing your mind and taking care of your mind when it comes to what you think about who you are as mom. So.
Yeah, and as we wrap up the definition of motherhood, I just want you to kind of set it up that the world sees motherhood as one of and the let's just elevate it to the most valuable role. I mean, and statistically, on Mother's Day, there's 122 million calls worldwide, and that number is probably just a random number. You know, it's a research number, but you know how people are. But the point is that there's more calls on Mother's Day than any other day of the year, because that role is valuable, that role is important, and the world sees it as that. You know, what is the quote? The next generation is built from mothers, and so that's what we get to do as moms.
Well, and it just makes sense as we start talking about victimhood. It's like, why do you think the enemy wants to skew what a mother is? You know, why?
And rob you.
Yep. We don't really talk about the controversial stuff of like different topics that deal with parents and family and same-sex marriage and all that. Like, we have a very clear stance on who we are and what we believe. We believe a woman is a mom, a man is a father, and they are supposed to be married and have a family. But I think there's a lot of like, what is a mom? What's her job? Should she be full-time this? Should she do this? Should she stay home? And it's like, we're talking about something so much bigger than that and how God sees it. And that will help you trickle down into your family season and your family's decisions. But I think it's important to note that God thinks motherhood is so valuable. And so the enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy and mix it up and make it overwhelming and confusing, which is why we're talking about victimhood. So let's define that.
Yeah. So exactly. He wants us to act in the role of being a victim. And a victim is, well, once again, the hood is the state or the condition of being a victim. Well, so how do we break down the victim? A victim has got a bunch of bad words connected to it, you know, abuse, injury, you know, all those things. And I'm like, well, I don't know that we're necessarily being abused by our 2-year-old. I mean, sometimes maybe, you know, if they're screaming and throwing things at us, but it's really a person who suffers from destructive or injurious actions, or someone who's tricked or swindled, deceived by others, cheated by their own emotions and ignorance. And I love that part on the back end, because I think a lot of the times, while there are many people that are victims from what's happening externally to them, most of the time we put ourselves into victim mode, victimhood, by what our thoughts are, what we're thinking, and what our emotions have tricked us into feeling.
Yeah. Or taking emotions as truth.
Yeah. Believing that, oh my gosh, my toddler's manipulating me. Okay. They, while they are brilliant, they are not quite intelligent enough to manipulate you. What they're doing is they're literally going from their desires only. I want a cupcake. I want a cupcake. You know, they're not saying, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and throw myself on the floor and scream and yell and really embarrass mommy because I want a cupcake and maybe she'll give it to me if I do that. They're not thinking any of that high level thought. Yeah. They're thinking, I want, give me.
Yeah.
You know,
whatever
I'm going to throw a fit, you know, not to bother you, but because I feel like I'm not getting what I want. It really doesn't have a whole lot of, they don't have a whole lot of connection to, they're not trying to cause anything from you. They just are so fully self-centered. And I think so many times if moms can even step away from that and realize, oh, my child's not out to get to me.
Yeah.
My child's not abusing me, not trying to injure me. My child's not. If we can start thinking that, then we can start seeing that differently.
Yeah.
And so why do moms feel like victims? What would you guys say makes you feel like a victim? What's something that happens, or what is something that you've done, or maybe your friends have shared with you that you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it feels like it really is a lot in the mindset and perception. Like, I feel like you talk a lot, Mom, about like flipping your thinking. And it's that piece of, okay, Alice just found this, like, she found a terrible noise. And it's like, now she uses it anytime she wants something. You know, it's like, oh, woe is me. Now I have to listen to that terrible noise. Bummer. You know, it's like, that's
get your attention.
Yeah, it gets my attention and she gets what she wants and I don't, because I have unpeaceful household. You know, like, which you might be like, haha, that's funny. But that's like a literal thought that goes through my mind sometimes. And it's that easy for anything. Like, that's a little small noise from my 11-month-old. And imagine like thinking of our sister Madeline, who has 4 kids. You know, if each of them are doing something that's bothersome and inconvenience, like Juliet loves to busy herself by unorganizing and taking things out of each cabinet every day. You know, it's like, that's an inconvenience. Like, there's a lot of like little things, it feels like. And because so much of the day is filled with spending time with little people, it feels hard to not feel like a victim to their responses and experiences and immaturities, let's say. Because you're spending all day with very immature sinners. Like that's who it is. You know, like we want to be 16-year-old, 17-year-old, mature, but differently. But then whenever we get to having 16-year-olds, it's like they're also hard in their own ways, and we can be victims to why they're responding the way they are.
Matured sinners.
Yeah. It's like I'm not. So that was a helpful perspective that one of my friends gave a while back, is like we want our 2, 5, 7-year-olds to act like they're way older than they are and be like Jesus loving, God-fearing people, but they're not. And sometimes they give glimpses of that whenever they do certain things. And so then whenever they respond in their immaturity, we're like, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing that?
Grow up.
Yeah. Why are you impacting me that way? Like you are interrupting my day and my life. Stop it. So I think that those are a few different of the components is the people that we're dealing with, the people that we're operating around are little sinners, and our like daily lives is filled with a lot of potential interruption, and it creates a lot of space for seeing it negatively.
Yeah. Again, my mom just has like a list in her notes of bullet points. Why do moms feel like victims? And I'm just like, space violated.
But before space violated, check. Yeah, go on. Because I want to say, because when was the last time you went to the bathroom by yourself?
Yeah.
You know, that's the part that I always think of as a mom. You know, we just, so totally space
Once
violated.
they start walking.
Yes.
Kinsey still has that freedom.
Because she can leave her.
Her child doesn't follow her. Literally the other day I was going to the bathroom and Selah was running up and down the hall because she couldn't find me. Mom. And I was like, I'm in here. Mom, just back and forth. I'm like,
or if anytime Macy sits down, and Madeline too, all of her kids flock to her. Like Selah thinks she needs to nurse. If mom sits down, Selah needs to nurse. So Macy stands up all day long so she doesn't have to be nursing
her.
I'm
getting my steps in now for sure than I ever have before.
So anyway, space violated.
But yeah, just like there's so many areas where the enemy can get in and say, like, you didn't sign up for this. That's like a big thing that pops into my head that I have to battle with a lot, is like, I wanted to have a family. I wanted to have a marriage. But the minute it got hard, it was like, I didn't sign up to, be treated like this. I didn't sign up to sacrifice like this. And it's like, there are so many areas that I'm like, I am prone to victimhood. And I think one of them is my independence and my ability to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And so I'm still working. I work for Crazy Cool Family, and it's a very flexible job. Shout out to dad, best boss ever. But I'm like, I want to sit down between 9 and 11 a.m. and work on stuff. That's when my team is online. That's when everyone's doing stuff, it feels like. And that is Selah's prime time, play with me, hang out with me. I'm going to scream at you if you don't do what I want you to do window. And I'm just like frustrated, probably once a week, if not more, when I don't get to sit at my computer for 2 hours straight during one of her wake windows. Yeah. And that to me is such a picture of like, there's 1,000 areas like that. I don't get to go grocery shopping by myself anymore. I don't get to like go to sleep exactly when I want to anymore. Yes. I don't get to talk to my husband when I'm in a car drive because Selah's screaming half the time anymore. And there's so many areas of my life that I loved doing, and it felt so purposeful and so independent that I would say I've been robbed from, and I wasn't expecting not to like get to do them on a regular basis. And like my husband had his birthday a few days ago, and that's what we did as part of our day, is we went to Walmart because we just wanted to walk around Walmart and get to go on the aisles we wanted to go on, not the aisles Selah wanted to go on. So there's just such a easy on-ramp, easy access, 1,000 roads in my brain that lead to victimhood when I don't get what I want when it comes to my independence and my like schedule.
I think the things that fed into me feeling like a victim is when I didn't feel like I didn't have enough sleep, because you're sleep deprived from pretty much the moment you conceive, and which fed into my energy. And so if I didn't have enough energy to keep up with their energy, and I'm going to ask God, okay, God, help me understand why you wired the 2-year-old to have more energy than the adult that's in charge. And so for me, those were the things that created a victim mindset for me, was that I didn't feel like I had what it take to keep up with what they needed, because I was tired and I was grouchy, and they wanted to go and do, and y'all wanted to go have fun. And I was like, I just want to veg. And so I just remember that was one of the things.
Yeah, definitely that sleep deprived piece feels like And we often talk about it. I talk about it through like my fuse. It's like, how long is my fuse? And I feel like victimhood feels the loudest whenever my fuse is really short and I'm losing my patience quickly and I'm feeling just not the fruit of the spirit in any form or fashion. And that then makes me want to blame something, anything. And
Good.
that's what comes up is blame of like, okay, I can blame Alice because she kept me up all night. That's why I'm in a bad mood. And she just did this other thing. And then I can blame Parker because he did this. And so
Right.
woe is me. My life is terrible. My heart, like I'm having a terrible day. My fuse is short. And so it's helpful language to be like, okay, my fuse is short. So I'm gonna take care of my need and find a time for me to expand my fuse by spending time with the Lord or going for a walk by myself or asking Parker to do something like to take care of the things that I've been taking care of so I can respond to them. But yeah, I feel like that's another big piece is blaming. And because I feel like that's what victimhood is in a lot of ways is blaming other things, which carry weight, like it's not meant to be all on the person. But I think that's just another piece that came to mind.
You said this before we started recording. I just want to throw it in here really quick and challenge the moms or anyone listening to this is like a really good question to ask the Holy Spirit is like, what are my symptoms of victimhood? Like what's coming out of me that's showing my internal heart posture that maybe I'm thinking like a victim. And one of the things you said earlier, Kinsey, was complaint. Like you said, a short fuse. I think that's really good. And then you said complaining. If I find myself complaining a lot or living in that mindset of like, oh, I just don't want to do this. Oh, this is too hard. Oh, this is blah, 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 negative, negative, negative. Those are symptoms of living in a victimhood mindset. We're not saying you are, we're just saying those could be great indicators.
Red flags.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the red flag, exactly. Once again, if you're living in a victimhood mentality, then what are the red flags? And I love that. What are the symptoms? And I would add what Kinsey just said, blame.
Yeah.
If you're blaming, if you're pointing the finger,
Yeah.
if you're mad at your child, if you're mad at your husband, you're mad at the circumstances in your life, then if you something ends up, let's say you're carrying the trash and the trash bag breaks and you go straight into rage. Okay.
Short fuse.
Yeah. And so what are you going to do with that? And so
Yeah.
just knowing that and just having it as a red flag. And so,
Yeah.
and
not letting it spiral you into self-pity or more
or condemnation.
Yeah,
I mean,
because that's what the enemy wants. And that's kind of where we want to move into is we want to validate that all those things are real. They are frustrating. They are hard. There is a place for growth in everybody and our husbands and us and our kids. Like we are validating the things that we're feeling. But the goal of this podcast is not just to talk about everyone being a victim and relating to each
and
other.
leave you there. Goodbye.
Yeah, and just laugh about it. I'm like, we really want to talk about a couple ways you can move from victimhood into motherhood. And we're just believing these are just a couple ways, maybe like broad strokes, but there could be a specific way that the Holy Spirit wants to change you or reveal himself to you.
And something before we get into it that was valuable when we were talking about this was that it's a joke. Like in motherhood, like there's so much humor around this that makes it to where it feels like it's funny because it's relatable, like whenever we hear different things and see different things. But I think what's next after we laugh about it, like, is there shame? Is there anger? Is there sadness? Is there grief? Is there disappointment? Like there's so many, because it's like, this has been a dream that I've had is being a mom and getting to raise kids, or this is something that I wasn't expecting. And now I'm stepping into like, how do I let that next feeling come after I laugh about the relatability of the challenges of it, and take that to God and to even my community too, because it is funny. Like the things that our kids do in the day to day that take our body and time and energy and effort. There's a bit we have to laugh through it, but how do we also cry in it too when we need to?
That too, and that's okay.
And it's so funny. You're totally right, Kinsey, because like if you're in a group of moms and you're like kind of playing the my kid game, like my kid did this, but my kid did this, the conversation dies and everyone just kind of like, like we go back.
This is our reality.
We go back to it now, and so it is so pivotal of like, are you the encourager in that moment? Or you're like, hey, let me pray for you in that moment. Are you thinking in your head, like, I don't want to go back to my kids in that moment? Like your mind is so powerful. And what you think after you relate to somebody in their motherhood is like very, very important. So just bringing awareness to that. If you're scrolling on Instagram and you follow mom influencers and they're talking about, all their relatable topics, what are you thinking? What are you feeling after you're looking at that? There is an initial laugh and like connection. But I think if we're not careful, the enemy uses that for his plans instead of God using it for his plans. So how do we do it, Mom? How do we move from victimhood to motherhood? You wrote down a couple great things. We just want to kind of share them with you, and then we'll wrap this baby up.
Yeah. And so the ultimate mother that I would, go to the Bible and look to is obviously the mother of Jesus. And it's a little bit not fair because Jesus was the perfect child. Kenzie said earlier, our children are immature sinners, and Jesus never was. But Jesus did present some challenges to his mother.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of want to talk about those for just a second. Starting with, she had him out of wedlock. So she could have been a victim from the very beginning. She could have, but she was told, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have the savior of the world and do it, and her response could have been, are you kidding me? Absolutely not. I can't do it. I'm not worthy. I don't want to. And I'm sure she felt all those things, but my favorite response that she said was, I am the Lord's servant. And then she goes on to do, she sings, it's called Mary's song in scriptures. And she says, my soul glorifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in the Lord, and my God, my savior. And she goes on. And so I just want to encourage you, moms, when you, not if, but when you feel swept up in, this is too much, I can't do it, I don't want to do it, this is hard, go back to Luke 1 in the very beginning and read Mary's song and remember how she focused all of that hard into, okay, God, I'm your servant. What do you want? And the reality is to be the best mother we can be, we have to be a servant of the Lord's first. We are. I mean, we automatically are a complete and total servant. You are fully self-sacrificing. You sacrifice your body if you grow the baby. You're sacrificing your body as you feed the baby. You're sacrificing 12 hours, your 8 hours, your 4 hours, your 2 hours of sleep, every night for, I would say for 18 years, but I still don't sleep, going. I go, and so anyway, I just want to just encourage you to look to Mary as your example of because she was fully human, she raised the savior. So she raised a different child, but we can relate to her because she was fully human. So the first thing I want to say is make motherhood be unto God. Yeah. That's one of the best ways to flip your perspective.
Well, and the practical, I think another way you could say that, and it shows in Mary's response is, Mary laid her life down to Jesus and she said, who do you say that I am? I am your servant. That's what I'm declaring. Even when I don't feel it, even when I don't understand it, that's my identity, is to serve you, to do this life unto you. And then her first two responses in her song, this is what my soul is doing. This is what my spirit is doing. This is who I say that I am, no matter what. And I think that as a mom, if you want to live in healthy motherhood and not in victimhood, we have to start with surrender. God, I give you my family. I give you my kids. I give you my expectations. I give you my day. Who do you say that I am? And if you just do that, like if you pause the podcast and turn it off and you just start there, I think it will drastically change your day, because you'll stop living in all the what ifs and I wishes, and you'll start living in, no, God made me to be an encourager as a mom. That's my goal today, is to encourage my kids. I live unto that, and that is glorifying to God. And I think if we actually did that, it would really, really change our families and our perspectives.
Okay. All right, then. So we've got Mary, a motherhood unto God. I love the practical there, May. So another part is, let's fast forward to when Jesus, he ran away, kind of. I mean,
to hang out with his father.
So his earthly parents, his mother, it says in Luke, she says, when his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching you.
Victim, Mary.
Why have you treated us this way? I mean, I remember thinking that of my children. I remember thinking you guys doing something. I'm like, why are you treating me that way? Why are you talking to me that way? Why are you acting that way? Why are you, and so that she turns around, and then Jesus comes back with, the perfect child. Why were you searching for me? Didn't you know that I had to be in my Father's house? And so he reframes it for her, which Jesus will do for us as well in our parenting. Once again, we're in the category of Mary, not in our children as Jesus, but in the category of Mary. But I love it how she At the end of the verse, she says, his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And so she took what she had thought is disobedience. Jesus reframed it and said, no, I'm doing what God called me to do. And she then treasured those in her hearts. And that's what I want to encourage you to do as parents, is to rebalance the bad and the good. What is it? So downplay the heart. The heart's going to happen. The heart's happening. It's going to happen every single day, but replay the highlights. So many times I remember going to bed thinking, oh my gosh, that kid colored all over the walls and yelled at their sister and didn't share. And I'm thinking, how can I fix that? And how can I do that? When that was with the little girls, and then God did a work in my life, and when I raised the little boys, and my thought processes in my brain was, oh my gosh, was Michael not the cutest thing in the whole world? Oh my, McKay, I could just smooch his elbows forever. And I went from thinking the bad things, they did bad things too, they did awful things all day long, but I started focusing and paying attention to the good things. What's the good that they're doing? I mean, and it's no small thing that God makes our children so cute, with their big old eyes and their puffy little cheeks and their fat little elbows, because you can't help but just be overwhelmed with, I just want to grit my teeth, overwhelmed with, oh, I love you so much.
Good. Well, Jared and I have done that a few times in the last year with Selah. Is like, we're exhausted and our house is a mess and we feel like tissues, and we lay down in bed and I'm like, do you just want to like look at pictures of her? And he's like, yeah. Or he'll be like, do you miss her? And I'm like, yeah. So we'll just like get out our phones and just look at videos or pictures of the coolest, newest things she's done or whatever. But it's really important and really practical. Like, what are you thinking in your mind when you go to sleep, or even when you wake up? Like, what are your thoughts about the people in your life, the relationships in your life? Are they victim thoughts? Are they, empowered thoughts, encouraging, life-giving thoughts? And how do you frame the day?
Yes.
I think Madeline talked about that, our older sister, of like, she wants to be like the perfect mom, and she wants to hit it out of the park, and she wants to get to the end of the day and never have like lost it on her kids or anything. And she like evaluates her day, and she's like, oh, I was like a 97% mom today. I was like a 90%, but it's like, are you choosing to focus on all the things that made you not 100%? Are you choosing on all the things that made you get to 97? Because that's really important. Grade yourself all day, however you want to do that. But I don't think that's how God is really focused. He cares way more about, like you're saying, all the highlights, or all the good, all the places you praised your kids, encouraged them, made laughter in your home, created peace, made life purposeful and adventure, not all the places you failed.
The Lord says, do not let the sun go down on your anger. And so that holds true to your children as well. If they did something, they threw that embarrassing fit in the grocery store, and you're kind of a little bit mad at them, there's a little bit of a grudge. You've got that PTSD, oh my gosh, this is so fried and so stressed. I just encourage you to just, as you climb into bed at night, just give that to the Lord. Lord, I give you this day. It was a bad one. We all had a bad day. Tomorrow's a new day. Would you highlight the positive things, the good things that happened today, the hugs and the smiles and the laughs and the things? Go to bed thinking about that. Subconsciously, your brain starts rewiring itself, cleaning out the bad, literally cleaning out the bad. I look back at their childhood and I have a hard time remembering the bad things that they did. And as their children are doing things, I'm thinking, my kids didn't do that. And Madeline called me up. She goes, I remember us doing that, Mom. And I was like, oh yeah, I just cleaned that out. Y'all were just practically perfect in every way. So
there's a quick story I want to share. And then Kenzie, if you want to add anything before we move on. The other day, our whole family got together, and the oldest grandbaby, Truett, didn't get what he wanted, basically. And he's sitting at the dinner table and he's sobbing, like he's literally crying because he's not getting what he wants. And Madeline,
I had to leave the room because I would have given it to him. It's like the parents do the parents.
But I was just so proud of Madeline, his mom, because she was just, I don't know, it just was like really cool to watch. She just sat next to him, and they essentially argued for like 30 minutes about why he should get it and why he was sad and why she wasn't gonna, let it go and let him have it, whatever, this whole conversation. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, if I was Madeline, I would go away from that conversation feeling one of two ways. I'd either go away feeling really discouraged, like my kid is a basket case and I'm a bad parent because I don't give them whatever they want. And it was such an easy, like there's this whole train of thought that she probably could have gone down. Or she could have been like, that was such a good moment for me and Truett. And I feel like I was observing that, and I was thinking that the whole time she was talking, as I'm like, this is what God does. Like God sits with us in our mess. He sits with us in our frustration, even in our like rebellion, our desire to go against him. He just sits there. And she probably sat there for like 20 plus minutes of like, I hear you, buddy. I understand. And she was firm with him. He said,
And I'm sad with you. I'm
yes,
sad that that
and
was
I
the
get
choice that
it.
was
Yes,
made.
I regret this. With like, she just had so much language between them, and he was just unfiltered. He was mean to her. He was disrespectful. And there was a couple times she was like, "You cannot talk to me like this." You know, she was firm, but I think there was a really cool picture that comes up in this is like, even in the moment, you can choose to rebalance the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Even in the middle of the fit, even in the middle of the horrible baby sound, it's like you can choose in that moment to be like, I'm not going to be a victim here. I'm not going to like go down into an angry, frustrated pit. I'm going to see this for what it is. It's an opportunity to connect with my child. It's an opportunity to be Jesus to my child, to show them the heart of God. And I think we would be pretty surprised at how quickly we kind of get out of our head and we're like, okay, I need to love my kid right where they're at, you know, and like meet them the way God does, not what necessarily I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So,
I think
oh yeah.
two little thoughts that I've been having as y'all have been talking is the retelling of stories. I went out with some friends this past week and they have a really high value for funny. And so they would reshare the funny, silly stories that their kids would say and do.
Love
And
that.
it was like so fun and we laugh. And as I think about their kids, I just think about the funny things that they say and do and have an appreciation for them. And I would just say like our kids hear the stories that we retell about them. And right now in their childhoods, they're like, we're collecting those stories and they're collecting those stories of who they are and what their childhood was like. And so if we're retelling the story where they pooped on the ground and played in it, and we say that story 1,000 times over the course of their childhood, that's not the most uplifting moment to be highlighting. But whenever we share about the first time they stood up and they smiled so big and they clapped for themselves and fell, you know, it's like that's a story that is fun and life filled. And so just thinking about like what are the stories that first come to mind and that you tell your spouse when they get home, or you tell the other siblings, you tell your parents, or like what are the stories that you're sharing, and what does it look like to let that be one of the places to start to cultivate life and laughter and joy, instead of the doom and the victim mindset.
Oh,
And then
so good. So
the
good.
second thing that came to mind that Parker and I had a good conversation about the other day was in the blaming piece of victimhood. The 1 Corinthians 13 talks about love keeps no record of wrong. And we had an honest conversation of like, hey, I think that you're carrying some records for me. And it makes tomorrow, like, because I had a few weeks of not being in a very good mood. And he was like, hey, you've been in a bad mood for like 2 weeks. And I was like, yeah, I have. It's hard for me too. And got to have a good conversation of like at me being like, can you release me from those 2 weeks? Because I'm wanting to be in a different mood. But if I'm tied to that, then it then becomes 3 weeks and 4 weeks and 5 weeks. And so could you love me in such a way that you're not keeping a record of where I've been wrong? And I think that applies for our kids too. It's that going to sleep and being like, am I keeping a track of how many times my kids bit me, of how many times my kids hit me, of how many times they threw a fit in public? Or am I like learning from those experiences, but then forgiving them and loving them as if they have not offended me or hurt me in that place? Or am I carrying that? And it adds to the history of hurt. And I just think that the keeping of no record of wrong is so of God, but not of the world. And it's pretty hard to do that from a worldly, self-focused experience, but it is life-changing and can only come from God for us to love our kids through keeping a record of wrong.
Yep, I 100% agree that that's the supernatural part of God, that we get to be a part of, because we're going to remember and we're going to hold on to it because we're human and we're sinners. But if we say, God, help me forget that, replace that, remove that, he's faithful and he will, and he does. So those are excellent, excellent points that I love that, the retelling of good stories. And I love that. Okay, the last point I just want to talk about, moving from victimhood to motherhood, and how Mary did it is to see the bigger picture, to not be caught up in the here and the now, which is so hard not to do, but not to be caught up in the here and now of what's happening in the heart of the now, and to see what you're working for, to see what's coming in sight. What are we raising them to be? And so now you fast forward to Mary and the wedding, and I love it. It's super simple. I wish that it would have gone into more explanation, but it doesn't. All it says is Mary goes to Jesus and she goes, they have no more wine. I mean, so Mary, mom sees the problem. She brings it to Jesus, and Jesus says, woman, why do you involve me? My hour is not yet come. Mary doesn't even address Jesus, doesn't even address his time frame or anything else like that. All she says is, doesn't even talk to him anymore, turns to the servants and say, do whatever he tells you to do. Knowing good and well who he is, what he's called for, what he's there for. I just love that role of Mary in the Savior's life. She pulls him into his destiny of what he's supposed to be doing, and he steps into it and he does it. And I'm just awed by that. I'm like, mothers, that's what we get to do. That's what we get to call our children into the bigger, into the next thing. And so I just want to encourage you, and this is how we do that. Press into the qualities that your children have that drive you crazy, the ones that are taking you to, and then so pull into those, and I'll list those qualities, but I just want to say, how does the world need those qualities, and what are we going to do to mold and shape them? I mean, and so the one that I think of that comes to mind is Madeline's perseverance. She could out argue me. She could out persevere me. She could, to the point where I was like, whatever, Madeline. If you counted how many times I said that to her up through, whatever, Madeline. And she's incredible. She's got 4 children that she needs the perseverance with. She has gone to plant a church with it, and has had to build and had to a lot of different things around the church that they've gone from, renting a place to having a place. I mean, just all the different things that quality has helped, that we were able to mold and shape. Okay, so she's perseverant. This is what it is. It's driving me crazy, but how can we mold that for the world? So, if your child's stubborn or loud, or even rude. I think that even that concept of rudeness. Okay, is your child black and white? Are they truthful? Are they authentic? Are they real?
Justice.
Do they? Yes. And so anyway, y'all want to tap in on there on seeing the bigger picture, and even maybe a quality that you see in your children right now that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna call her up in that. It's pushing my buttons and it makes me crazy. But
yeah. I just feel like I say this a lot to my husband. It's probably why we got in so many fights in the first couple of years of our marriage, because I would always say, I think in like such future absolute terms. So I'd be like, if you treat me like this now, you're going to treat me like this forever. If she does this now, she's going to do this forever. And I think about it in such a long-term game. And I think that there's good and bad in that. It's like, you want to be able to see the bigger picture, but you don't want to be like hopeless or a victim in the sense of like, once this way, always this way kind of thing. And so I think a verse that we talk about all the time, that the church that we go to is kind of built on, it's like, without vision, the people will perish, people will fall apart. And it's like, you have to have a bigger vision for what you're doing, who you're raising your kids to be, but you also trust God in the process, and don't let the enemy steal, kill, and destroy that moment. Like let there be grace, in the bigger picture too, and not the absolute. So
yeah, I would say something that's been coming up through this entire podcast is the piece of like community and the value of like you being at home with your kids and them being rude. Like you can only do so much. Like you have so much power to create a space for them to be trained and molded, but getting around community can also help in that. If like the other day, Alice bit my finger and I said, ouch, that really hurt. And then she bit her own finger and she started crying. And she was like, that did hurt. And I was like, see? And it's like, that feels like kind of what community does. It's like, there's more, it's like whenever you have baby puppies and they bite each other and they whine and whimper. And it's like, you can't bite that hard. You got to not be that way. And I feel like that's what our upbringing did in a lot of ways, is we trained each other too and molded each other, which means you could be exposing your kid to more bad behaviors and more as they like get around other community. But I just think like raising kids with other people is another piece of seeing the bigger picture and engaging in them, like their ability to be sharpened by the people around them too.
We focused on 2 relational lines today, and I think it's really important that you know them as we finish up.
Yeah.
We talked about the parent to God relational line. That's you to God, your relationship, and really it's about your identity, who you believe you are as a mother, and choosing to live in the purpose of motherhood that God gave you and not in the victimhood of it. And then the second relational line, which was more the practical pieces, the Mother Mary with baby Jesus and teenage Jesus and, adult Jesus. It's like the parent to kid relational line is the overflow of the parent to God. So parent to God is the focus, what you and God are thinking about, what's in your mind, and then it overflows into the parent to kid. How are you treating your kids? How are you responding? How are you reacting? And how are you building your motherhood legacy in the moments, in the seasons, as you add kids, as kids leave, as like all those different pieces. And so that's kind of the main things we talked about today. And we really hope you got something out of this. And it's funny to say share this podcast because you basically are saying like, hey, share this with another mom that you think is a victim. So we're not really saying that, but what we're kind of saying is like, hey, let's be moms that come around each other and share truth and like challenge each other in love. And so if there's a mom that you know that is maybe having some of these symptoms or talking, we really encourage you to send the podcast to her and say, from your own perspective, hey, I listened to this. Hey, it was really convicting and challenging. Will you please listen to it and let's talk about it? Because iron sharpens iron.
Love
and
that.
I really think it could be a tool that you could utilize in your small group. You could utilize in your discipleship groups. You could utilize in your park hangouts, where you're kind of talking, but kind of playing with your kids, like let this be a topic that's surfacing in our communities because we believe it could change people and bring revelation and change our thinking and change our behaviors. So we really love you guys. We're for you. Please send questions. If anything popped into your head that you want to go deeper in or learn more about, email me at macy@crazycoolfamily.com and have a great rest of your day. Go be crazy, crazycoolfamily.com.